Okay, so the first thing that you want to check on your machine is the needle bar height. The correct height for the needle bar is that when the needle is at its lowest position, you need to be able to see not quite 100% of the eye of the needle. So in order to do this, you're going to need to start with removing the throat plate, and then you can check the setting. So I'll take that throat plate off real quick. Okay, so the needle on this machine is too low because you're able to see the top edge of the needle, which is incorrect. The proper adjustment for the needle is that at its lowest point, you should not be able to see the top of the eye of the needle. And as you can see, that reflective area coming into view when I lower it all the way, that is incorrect. So we're going to go ahead and correct that, and I'll show you how to do that now. Right above the keypad on a Statler, there are two rubber plugs. We're going to go ahead and remove the plug right in the center lower. Your machine may have just one plug. And with the needle at its lowest position, there is a screw head right in there. Let me see if I can move the camera just a little bit closer. Okay, this is the screw that we're going to loosen. About one turn, and then we can adjust the height of the bar. And if you don't loosen it too far, you'll be able to slide the bar up and down and peek down underneath to see if you've got it at the right place before re-tightening the screw. You do need to make sure that when you're done, the screw is very tight, but after you think you have it correct, you need to go down below and check your adjustment again. So go ahead and make that adjustment now. So often a flashlight will help with being able to see the needle bar height. If you move it around, you may be able to get a very good outline that allows you to see the eye of the needle. What we want to see is the entire eye of the needle and nothing more. It would be acceptable if we could only see half of the eye of the needle. So for example, if the lowest point all we saw was that would still stitch just fine. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to adjust after the needle height is checked and or adjusted is the hook to needle distance. So give me a second to move my camera around to the side and we'll take a look at that. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the hook to needle clearance. I've turned the machine so that the sewing hook is right behind the needle itself, and with the hook directly behind the needle, if I reach in where the bobbin case would go and press on the tip of the needle, there should be a very tiny deflection before it touches the hook. If there is no deflection, then the hook and the needle are touching each other and that is incorrect. If there is significant deflection, that will cause skip stitches, particularly when the machine is stitching back towards the pickup roller, and that would indicate a need to make an adjustment. The different needle sizes do have a different amount of gap, so the machine should be adjusted with a size 110, 4.0, 18 needle. If you put a smaller needle in there, it will deflect further. If you put a larger needle in, like a 5.0, then it will probably brush the hook if it's set properly. So that is the correct hook to needle clearance. If it is wrong, you'll need to reset the hook timing, and the clearance goes with that. So next we'll look at timing. Okay, so your timing on your Gammill is adjusted by the means of this timing gauge, and it has a set screw and a folding element, and I'll teach you how to use that right now. The first step is to turn the hand wheel on your machine until the needle is at its lowest position, and you want to be very careful to get it exactly in that lowest position. Now you're going to take the gauge, slide it into place, and gently tighten the set screw. You don't want to tighten it too tight because most of them have a plastic screw which could break, and if it has a metal screw it could leave a scar on the needle bar. So you don't want to, in either case, you don't want to tighten it too tight. Now go ahead and rock your hand wheel back and forth. Make sure that you've got that gauge up as high as it'll go. If it's not all the way up, loosen the screw, press it upwards, and then gently retighten the screw until you've got the very minimum amount of movement available when you turn your machine. Now, take this little tab here and pull it out. Turn the machine in the forward direction of rotation. So I'm going to advance the machine. You'll see the hook turns counterclockwise, which is the correct direction. And in that position, you should see, it'll stop by itself, and you should see the hook point directly behind the eye of the needle. So let's see if I can zoom in and get that. Okay, so there's your hook point there. Back it up, go forward. So this hook timing is incorrect. The hook is at the right-hand side of the needle right there, and it should be centered on the needle or perhaps ever so slightly past. You wonder how far past could it be and me be able to leave it alone and not have to fix it. The answer is, if you check your timing and it's centered, you're perfect. If it's a little bit past as much as one thickness of a needle, then you're going to be okay. Okay, that will stitch just fine. This is better, but either one will stitch. But in no case do you want to have your hook to the right-hand side of the needle, and that's what we have on this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust that by loosening the two timing set screws. When I do that, I will also have to reset the hook to needle distance, which I'm sad to do because it was perfect already on this machine, and that means I have to do it again. Now after your timing is correct, I only gently tighten that screw, just a little tiny bit. So I'm going to go ahead to the loose screw, and I'll ever so gently snug it. This was screw 1 again. Give it a little bit more. I'll go to the screw number 2. Go pretty tight. Go to screw number 1 again. Pretty tight. Now before I really tighten these screws, I'm going to give it one last check. The reason that I tighten them alternatingly like that is that if you just go and tighten a screw as tight as you can right off the bat, what will happen is it'll slip on you and it'll move everything. So I'm going to put the gauge back on, check my timing. Okay, that's perfect position. Don't know if you can see that at this point. I'm going to check my hook to needle distance. And that is perfect too. And that, my friend, is how you adjust the timing and hook to needle distance. Now a couple other things. After you adjust the timing and the hook to needle distance, there's a little black bar right here, and this keeps your bobbin case right side up. And it goes all the way across, and there's a screw underneath here that you can see the back side of the screw right there. The head of it is underneath. And this little black bar right here has a bump right here that protrudes into a notch on the silver piece. And that bar is supposed to go halfway into the notch. And there's a good tolerance for it. It can go anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3 of the way into the notch. So if you're trying to get it perfect, you go for about halfway. The other thing is the bar position is also adjustable right to left. And it is acceptable for it to be centered on the needle. And what I mean by that is if the center of the bump, which is right here, was a little bit to the right. See, I'm not looking at it right. The center of the bump, which is right here, was a little bit to the right and it was centered on the needle, that would be fine. The center of the bump should never be to the right of the needle. It's fine to be to the left. It can be to the left quite a ways, and it's fine to be centered, but it should never be to the right. So if it is to the right, you would need to loosen this screw right here on the underneath side. And you'll find that this bar comes quite loose, and you can move it right and left and in and out. And as far as the in and out, it should go halfway into the notch. After that is set, we need to check our rocking finger timing. Okay, the rocking finger, this is the hook assembly here. The rocking finger is driven by an eccentric cam that's directly behind the hook assembly. And it has 2 little Allen set screws in it. I don't know if this angle is going to be able to show it to us. Yeah, there's one of them right there. No, sorry, that's a hook one. That's one of them right there. Okay? There's 2. If I turn the machine a little farther, there's the other one. Okay, so the way these are right now, that one's facing the hole on the side when the other one's facing up. What we're going to do, we're going to put a wrench through the whole side of the casting. We're going to loosen that screw. Now we're going to turn the machine so that the screw we loosened is facing the floor and our wrench is in the other screw. It's locking the machine. At this point, the hook tip should be roughly halfway the distance between the left side of the hopping foot and the left side of the throat plate opening. And that is incorrect. This machine is wrong because the hook tip is basically behind the needle. That's why you can't see it. So I will loosen my second set screw, turn the machine until it meets the specification. And then I will retighten my set screw. Now, I'm in the second set screw. The first one is pointing at the floor right now. So I'm going to turn the machine backwards. Now, my wrench is in the one that was pointing at the floor, but I turned the machine clockwise. You make the adjustment with one screw at 9 o'clock and the other screw at 6 o'clock. Your wrench is in the one at 9 o'clock. That's how you make the adjustment. Once you tighten the one at 9 o'clock, you rotate it so that the one at 9 o'clock is now at 12, and the one that was at 6 o'clock and is loose is now at 9 o'clock. At that point, you tighten the second one that's at 9 o'clock, and then both screws are tight. And to double check, I'm going to go ahead and turn the machine back so that one screw is at 6 o'clock and one is at 9 o'clock. And I'm verifying that the tip of the hook is right there, which is roughly halfway between the left side of the needle plate and the left side of the hopping foot. That is your correct rocking finger timing. The next adjustment that we're going to check is the rocking finger clearance. What the job of the rocking finger is to do is it's supposed to open a little gap at the top of the bobbin case to allow the thread to come through. So as the machine is turning, I want to draw your attention to this spot right here in the photo. Okay, right here. You can see that the silver part and the black part are touching each other at the right hand side of their joining. As the machine stitches, if the rocking finger is doing its job, there will be 2 points during the rotation where a gap will appear on that right hand side, and the gap that you see on the left hand side will shrink to about half of what you see there. So we're advancing the machine, waiting for our gap to appear. Many times on a machine like this one, oh, there we go. There's our gap. And now it disappears again. I was going to say many times on a machine like this one where the rocking finger timing was incorrect, what I find is that the position is also incorrect. Because if the person who adjusted it was struggling to get it to work right because the timing was wrong, many times in order to get it working, they will have misadjusted the rocking finger position. If it needed to be adjusted, where you do it is this screw right here, but not the one that you see. You see a screw right there? This one right here? That is not the one we're going to adjust. So I've got both threads now coming up through the hopping foot. And I'm going to pin them to the casting of the machine like this. I'm going to turn the machine through a stitch. The hook is going to catch the thread, carry it around the bobbin. And you should be able to see down at the bottom that that loop of thread comes past the rocking finger and does not get stuck. And then as the stitch completes, it slides through a little gap and does not get stuck where that black finger's at. Go ahead and do that again. You'll probably need to take several stitches by hand just to get the hang of what it looks like. I'm going to take another stitch, and this one, right about the midway point where it goes past the rocking finger, once it gets past, I'm going to go ahead and let go of those threads. And I'm going to watch real closely as I advance the machine. And we should see that top thread come up through that gap with absolutely no resistance. That's how you know your machine is perfect.